Hey now, you're listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, welcome back. But if this is your first time listening to us, well then welcome. I'm your host, Ruben, and as always, my co-host Stan is on the line. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man.
So this was our 24th episode, and our guest was Joshua, and this was a pretty crazy episode to say the least, wouldn't you think?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's an understatement in my opinion.
Yeah. So to sum up the episode, Joshua, actually somewhat recently started discovering psychedelics and has dove in definitely into the deep end head first and has done them more and more frequently than I know that I've ever experienced myself. But I don't know. I mean, I think I was glad to have him on. I mean, don't you think he was a pretty good storyteller? I mean, his description of everything was pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely. For someone that said that, he's done 100 DMT trips, somewhere along those lines, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, the ability to recall the important things, or what he says are the things that are meant to be shared, it was remarkable.
Yeah, and in the short amount of time that he crammed all those in is pretty amazing too. But without further ado, here is Joshua. So, hey Joshua, how you doing there, man? Thanks for being on the podcast.
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. So, I usually just have guests. You have some interesting stories that we've talked about before and everything, and we'll get into that. But I usually, just have guests start out with, just give me a little, brief history of what got you into psychedelics or whatever, other crazy ways of thinking that you're into now, and just give us a little backdrop to your stories.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll preface this with like so many other people, I grew up in a Christian home, not your average Christian home. Didn't really go to church that much, didn't really agree with a lot of the things that go on in churches, but definitely a very big part of my spiritual background. Other than that, I guess it's something to note that I've been into anime since I was like 16. And I probably wouldn't have gotten to psychedelics if it wasn't for that. And then another note, I started vaping around the same time, cloud chasing, getting like lots of vapor in, huge clouds, instrumental in my DMT experiences. So it's a little bit about that. I guess also I practice Zen meditation. I've been doing that since I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender when I was 14. They had
wow.
Yeah. There was this whole episode where they were Aang met this guru, and he was clearing out his chakras and learning how to meditate and all that. Well, I mean, I guess he already meditated, but he was learning the chakra clearing process, and I didn't really know that was a real thing. I thought that was just in the show, but I started doing it myself when I was like 14. So off and on, for the longest time, I've just been meditating, and then later on, I found out that clearing the chakra was a real thing, and I wasn't just crazy doing something I thought that was real from a show. But yeah, it's a little bit of background there. And then how did I get into psychedelics? Well, the first one I tried was DMT. The craziest one.
Yeah, start at the top.
Yeah. And I got into that from Dragon Ball Z, actually. I was around 2016, December. I finally got around to binge watching Dragon Ball Z for the first time, and I guess I was touched by Goku's drive towards, continual progression and growth. and that was really inspirational to me. And then he got to the point where he was learning instant transmission, where he would visualize in his mind's eye where he wanted to go, and then he'd take his fingers and touch them to his forehead, right? And that was just like, huh, that must be like trying to, it's like analogous of the third eye. And I guess just being high and watching that, I thought, I'm gonna Google the third eye, right? So I just typed into Google the third eye, and it pulled up its little fact box. The third eye had something along the lines of, the organs mystics use to perceive into the interdimensional realms of existence, also known as the pineal gland. I was like, what? What do you mean, also known as the pineal gland? You trying to tell me this is real? So, I mean, what's the next step? Go to Wikipedia and type in the pineal gland and read the entire page. And I looked up the Wikipedia page for the pineal gland, and it, like last night, and it doesn't exactly have all the information it had back in 2016 for some reason. But when I read through it, I got to the point where it was talking about the photoreceptor cells lining the outer edges of the pineal gland that are analogous to the cones and rods in the retina. I'm like, so you're telling me that there's actual physical formations in the middle of the brain that are the same as what's in the eye, actually used to see with, and it's a third one?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So that alone was paradigm changing for me. It totally shifted my entire perspective. I now knew that I had an extrasensory organ in my brain that I wasn't taught about. And I could go down the whole rabbit hole of the calcification in the fluoride. I'm
Yeah.
not going to go there though.
Yeah.
But I definitely spent the next month making sure I didn't get any fluoride and, like getting all this stuff to decalcify and all that. But then I read further, and it got to the point where it was like, oh, and maybe also this gland produces, along with melatonin, also an N-dimethyltryptamine. As it's been proven in rats, it's most likely also the case that it's produced in the human brain. I'm like, oh, and it also mentioned that it was a psychedelic substance. I'm like, so you're telling me that I produce psychedelic substances already in my brain? I mean, so yeah, I go to the Wikipedia page for DMT, and then that leads me to DMT the Spirit Molecule movie, and then I read Rick Strassman's DMT the Spirit Molecule, and then I find Terrence McKenna, and then I find like all these different trip reports, and I read trip reports on Arrowhead and on Reddit, and I'm just blown away that this whole thing exists. Like this is real. This is like it didn't make sense to me that this was real, but it was. And I'm like, I've got to try it. To figure out what this is all about. I mean, from a young age, like I mentioned before, I grew up in a Christian home, but like my mom would tell me, like from a young age, that by the time she was 14, she had this out of body experience, and like she didn't do any kind of psychedelics. She just like prayed and stuff. I guess it was like a form of meditation, but she had this out of body experience where she left her body and was going through this tunnel, and on the tunnel was like a movie playing of her past and her future. And then she went into this place where she met like saints and Jesus and all that. And I'm like, well, I want to experience something like that sometime. How come I haven't experienced that before? And then when I get to the DMT, I'm like, that's it. This is it. This is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been trying to find. And I'm sure my experiences were colored from all my previous past history. But so about a month later, after discovering that it existed, I finally get some. And I get enough of it. And so I take it, and I didn't really know how to smoke like powder. Like I've never done crack. Don't know how to smoke that stuff. Like it's powder. So I mean, as a vapor, the natural thing for me to do is like, why don't I mix it into some e-liquid? So that's so that's what I did. I took a small amount of e-liquid and a large amount of DMT, and I figured out how to mix it up in the proper ratios to where like one hit would be like maybe 10, 15 milligrams. And I didn't want to go too crazy with it at first. So the first 3, 4 experiences, I was like, I'm going to go in and do about like 15, 20 milligrams. So I take the yield good. I put it in my RDA, got it all figured out, and then I put on my favorite music, the soundtrack from One Piece. Like all the theme songs from that anime, and it's like all those songs are about like adventure and braving the horizon and friendship and camaraderie. So like perfect for DMT, I thought. So I put that on and I take one hit, and the first thing I notice is the buzz. It's a low volume, high pitch, and then it just gets louder and louder and higher pitched till it's like almost a dog whistle, but you can still hear it. And then I feel like all the atoms and molecules in my body just begin to vibrate, and they were just vibrating so much that it felt like they all just like atomized and disappeared, and it was just me in my mind. And you know how when you close your eyes, normally it's a dark background. Well, it just lit up with color and light. Like it was just like plain background, but it was super bright, super colorful. And then slowly out of the horizon, this is probably like maybe 2 minutes in, off like into the horizon, off in the far distance, I see, like these shapes and these geometries slowly start to come toward me, and like change and morph and just like be all these intricate geometries. Like, I mean, I'm not big into geometry. It's not like I was studying all these different shapes, you know?
Yeah.
But they were just coming out of the horizon toward me. It was like speaking something to me, like the fundamental nature of the universe is order, and that's what I got from my first couple of experiences. I didn't go too deep.
So you totally came upon this through research. Like you didn't have any friends that were into it or that had done it or anything.
No.
See, that's pretty cool. I mean, and that might be indicative of the time we're in now. It's that I think that's becoming more common, just because of the internet and dark web and whatever and all this stuff that people are able to do this. But it makes me think about, like my experiences. Now I've never done DMT, but if I would have come across it in high school, I would have done it. And much like all the other psychedelics I did in high school, I wouldn't have known anything about it, like and how to do it, how to whatever, I remember the first time I bought Molly and tried that. Like I had heard of ecstasy and someone was like, it's Molly. And I was like, what is that? And they were like, it's new stuff. It's like ecstasy, but it's not in a pill. That's what people were calling Molly at this time in like the late 90s, at least in my area. And, me and some friends bought, it was a Vicodin bottle full of a white loose powder. And we asked like, well, how much do we take? And the guy's response was, I don't know. I don't do that fucking shit. And we were like, oh, that's good enough for me. Okay, thanks, man. And there maybe Earwood was just getting started. I didn't become familiar with Earwood or Wikipedia till, I was in college and stuff like that, and then started reading about stuff. But at that point, I had already done most of it and had no idea, looking at Earwood wasn't a way for me to find out how to do things. It was like, oh, I was doing that wrong, So it's interesting that the new generation of psychonauts, you can go into it much more well researched than everyone before you, And so it's cool to hear, how deep you dove into the subject and how informed you were going into it. I think it's really cool to hear your story of that, but also, I mean, like I said, I talked to a lot of people that seems to be how like I said, your generation of psychonauts is coming into this stuff, and it's what makes podcasts like this and YouTube and stuff like that so important, because it's just part of the research that people can do.
Yeah. I did a full month of research before I ever even tried it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, since then, have you fallen into psychedelic circles and friends and stuff, or are you still pretty much a solo adventurer?
Just solo adventure. I know like 2 other dudes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's awesome, and to plug the Discord server, like I'm glad you got on there, because that's the other thing that those are important for, not just the research but the camaraderie and the community, and so having that available with with the current state of things is great for people in your situation.
Yeah, there's only been a handful of people who've heard my story so far.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So when we talked before, you had a story that is very intriguing about doing. I think it was LSD in Japan. Why don't you tell that story?
Well, I've got like some more like I just barely scratched the surface of the DMT experiences. That was like
Oh,
just
well,
the beginning.
okay. Well, hey.
I'll get to it all, man. We got time.
Okay.
So, yeah, those first like 5 DMT trips, like, and I've experienced about 50 breakthrough DMT trips, maybe about another 30 to 40 sub breakthrough trips, and that was all within the same year. Uh, and I haven't actually done any since that year of DMT, but yeah. So after those few, sub breakthrough experiences, I was a little bit more confident. I was like, yeah, I know what this is about. I can go deeper. Yeah, I'll go ahead and go the full 50 milligram dose. So it was within the same week and a half, maybe, of those sub breakthrough doses that I decided to go all the way in, and I had read the reports. I knew it was gonna happen, and and it happened. I took probably 3 hits, got to the point of 50 milligrams. It started out the same as those other experiences. The vibration, the buzz, the lighting up of the background, the geometric shapes. But then, after I took the second hit, get that it doubled all that. Then I took the third hit, and after just a few seconds, boom, I was flying through past. Like it wasn't flying at me anymore. I was flying toward it, and I was flying past it. I flew past the horizon, and after I flew past the horizon, I broke out into another dimension. And as soon as I did, they were there. They were there. They were saying, "Hooray! Hooray! You're here! You made it! We're so glad you've made it!" And they're all dancing and shouting and singing and then morphing and changing, and everything was so deep and amazing. And they're like, "Here, look at this, look at that," like how Terrence McKenna described it. And they were like, "Let me show you like the intricacies of the universe. Let me show you how these fundamental laws of physics work. Let me show you this and that. Let me show you the destiny of humanity. Look over there. That's what's gonna happen." Wow. And that was just like, whoa. I thought I was ready for this. I thought I knew what was gonna happen, but no. But no, like it's like the way people describe it, it's kind of like that, but it's so, so much more. There's no way to get across the emotional state of someone who was there in that. Like I was just in awe. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. I was in a passive, observant type of state where I was just seeing everything that was going on and trying to take it all in, trying to absorb as much as I could, but then after you come out, it's like Psych Substance put it, it's like gold dust that slips through your hands. You know that you experienced all this amazing and wondrous stuff, and all this information that you could never possibly comprehend otherwise. Like you comprehend it while you're there, but when you're back, it's like it's like textbooks worth of stuff. You can't get it out in 5-10 minutes. You can't get it out in the 15 minutes before it slips through your hands. And then, but as you get more experienced, uh, the more times you go in there, you expect that loss of information, like that there's like this veil that it covers it, but you can still try to pull back something. And the most important things, and the things that I think are supposed to be shared, you do remember that you can still keep. So there are definitely like what I'm saying here, obviously I remember that much, but like the mysteries of the universe, the fundamental laws of physics, they were telling me like I couldn't reiterate
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Like the stuff you can't do anything about, you can't take back.
Right. And then so that was that, that experience, and then I went into that kind of experience 2-3 days later, same kind of experience, and then I did it again, like maybe 2-3 days later, same kind of experience, and then I got to the point where I was thinking like, well, who are these guys? And like doubt entered my mind. Like, what's really going on here? Is this real? Is this fake? Is this all in my head? Am I really experiencing information coming into my pineal gland through my photoreceptor cells from higher dimensional planes of existence? Or is this all malarkey?
Yeah.
So I began to doubt. I was wondering, like, are these angels? Are these demons? Are these aliens? Who are they? So I went into the next trip with this doubt, and it went south. It didn't go right. Like I was there, but I was like, who are you? What is this? I had all these questions, these doubts. And they got like sour and a little bit upset and frustrated. Like the entities that were loving and kind and caring and sharing were all upset and sad and frustrated because I had all this doubt in my heart, this emotion that I was bringing with me. They didn't like. So that was like a negative experience. I remember looking at my and I probably did like 60-70 milligrams, because I was trying to go super far. And I remember trying to look at my watch, like trying to open my eyes. It was so hard, like when you're asleep and you're trying to wake up but you can't. It was like that, and like I was trying to look at my watch, and then I remember looking at it. And I moved my arm, and then my arm turned into 10 arm slices that were all rainbow colored, and like it stayed like that for like 2 seconds, and it was like super trippy. I looked at the watch, and then maybe 15-20 minutes passed. I look at my watch again, and it felt like 15 minutes and 3 seconds. And that's how like all DMT trips are. Super long amount of time passes in the mind when it's just 15 minutes. Like these experiences felt like maybe hours, days, weeks. Those very positive, emotionally enlightening experiences was just like, it felt like so long. But then I had the negative one where I had the doubt. It also felt long.
Yeah.
But I got out of that. And then the next time uh, like I knew I was going to do it again, like in another day or two. So I thought, okay, well, instead of going in with all this doubt and all this questioning, you know, what I'm going to do, I mean, seeing as I'm a Christian and I'm wondering whether or not they're angels or demons, is what I'm going to do next time. Is I'm going to ask them, do you love Jesus? Do who do you serve?
Have you heard
Right?
the good news?
Yeah, right, right. So I go into the trip. I take about 50 milligrams, and then I'm there. I'm back there. They're all dancing and singing and happy because this time I'm bringing love with me. And I say, who do you love? Do you love Jesus? And I figure, if they're demons, they'll just run away. But no, they didn't run away. They said, what do you think this is all for? Who do you think this is all about? Why do you think we're singing and dancing? Why do you think all this amazing, beautiful imagery is going on? It's because we're singing and dancing for you and Jesus and the saints, and we're doing it to glorify God, our Creator, because that's what we were created to do. We were created to have this amazing and immaculate experience of beautiful love and caring and compassion and camaraderie, and experience this emotion and to share it with you. And we're dancing and singing and cheering because you're here, and we can show you. And we can show you that this is what it's about. That this is why we're here. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's awesome. That's cool. So like, where's Jesus? And then I heard a voice say, "You looking for me?" And I was just like, yeah. And then I didn't see a person, but I saw a consciousness. And this consciousness was, it surpassed all of these other, like, higher dimensional DMT angelic like beings. Like, these things were so amazing. I was like, whoa, like I could never comprehend how much they know. It's like they've got billions of years of knowledge. But then this consciousness that said, are you looking for me? And then it came in. It was like all the DMT beings were like little tiny ants in comparison. And it was this bright, glowing, radiating light. It was just like like purifying fire. And it was just so, like I felt all the compassion and love and the passion and this emotion that was indescribable and overflowing and deeper than all the oceans. And it said to me, I love you. I'm glad you love me. Thank you for existing, because I went through all kinds of horrible stuff just so that you can continue to be. You know, he was saying, you know, uh, I, like I existed so that everyone can continue to exist. I exist so that you can be, and it was like this bright uh passion that is just like, I've taken DMT plenty of times, and this was more than the DMT experience.
Mm-hmm.
This was something beyond. Like, all these DMT beings were nothing in comparison to it. And it said, I'm with you, and I've been with you. And through all the hardships and all the pain, I went through that. And when you go through that, I know, and I'm with you. So whenever you have all this, suffering, just know that I'm right there with you, and be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when I was going through all this confusion from my last DMT trip, and I, like, after that I had just like some anxiety after that experience where I felt Christ consciousness, acknowledge that he was there and he is with me and he cares and he loves me. I didn't have another bad DMT trip, and I did DMT a lot afterwards.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant, strong spiritual experience, because you never had anything like that prior, and possibly, you weren't as strictly, religious as some people, but like some people want to get to that level without DMT or any kind of drug.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Like, do you think that would be possible? Do you think there's different pathways to that place to be with that energy, or did this make you think like DMT is the only way to get there?
No, no, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that for me, I felt it helped me get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of just a lot of confusion I had, a lot of doubt and mistrust, in like the Bible and what I've been taught, and like I'm not just gonna believe something because someone told me it was true.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to feel it. I've got to know it. I've got to understand it. And when I had this experience where uh, Jesus actually was there and spoke to me, I didn't doubt anymore. I didn't believe that. I mean, I did believe. Like there was no longer disbelief. It
Mm-hmm.
was just complete belief because he was there, and I felt him inside of me, in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it's not like it left. It was just there, and it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, personally, I think that all these labels we put on stuff like Jesus, God, Allah, Buddha, demons, angels, aliens, transforming machine elves, all of these terms are just this human language put on something that actually exists, a entity or a energy, that exists, but it's in another dimension, and it's impossible for us to explain it. And so, I think what you were looking for and felt as Jesus is what other people have felt as other things. They just put other names on it because that's what fits their, traditional school of thought that they were expecting or wanted to see or whatever. And, I think that goes to the core thing with religions. All have the same core values of love and belief and joy and all of these things. And it's unfortunate that all of the negative things that when you tried to bring into that dimension, they don't exist in that dimension, and they were upset. Those are the things that we focus on and have differences, of opinion, between religions or schools of thought. And we get hung up on the negative stuff that is only a matter to this dimension. And so, I mean, it's wonderful to hear, that you were able to come to that realization by putting some powder in a liquid and then breathing it in, like it's
Yeah, right. I mean, that's so trippy.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's kind of like a core, value of psychedelics that, like, I love hearing, people's stories, and especially yours, to talk about that, because it's when people are like, what's the greatest questions of life? And, the answer, stereotypically is like, why are we here? Or what's it all about? It's like, mine is, why do psychedelics do what they do? Like,
Right.
I think if you can answer that question, you can answer all the other questions,
Yeah. Right.
So, so did you reach a point where you felt you had enough DMT, or do you still frequently do it, or
Uh,
did you just move on to other things, or what was the progression there?
so after I had the experience where, like I met Jesus in DMT, it was probably about a week later that I got a hold of some 1P LSD. And I continued to do DMT for the rest of that calendar year. But I suppose that after that, my more powerful experiences was with 1P LSD.
Okay.
So the first time I tried it was probably uh, January of 2017. And so I was on a movie. It was Trigun Badlands Rumble, one of those anime movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took 100 micrograms of LSD for the first time. And I guess the first thing I experienced from the LSD was just the movie got really funny. And it might not it wasn't necessarily the funniest movie. I mean, it was a funny movie, but it got super funny. uh, and then maybe about after the movie ended, about an hour and a half into taking it, I started seeing the visuals. It was like super classicadelic, like 60s floral patterns. And I was just like, it makes sense. It makes sense. The 60s make sense now. Like, I see all the floral patterns. This is why they were drawing these things. And then like I went and looked in the mirror, and then it was like I saw a 70-year-old man in the mirror. I was like, what? Last time I checked, I was 19. And then and I got from that, I was like, is that like the 70-year-old me on LSD staring back at me through the mirror or something? Like, I don't know. And then I remember at one point I saw this stain on my floor, and I looked down at the stain, and I was like, "You're important too, stain. You know, the molecules that make you up are like so important and not a stain. You know, it's like you're important too." Uh, so that was my first uh, one PLSD trip, and coming down from that I was thinking like, man, so I gotta drive a car to go to work so I can go to work so that I can have a car, and then I can't, if I don't work I can't have a car, but if I don't have a car I can't work.
Get stuck in a loop like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a super loop.
Okay, so you took kava kava to come down, and then what happened?
Just went to sleep, some super extra hypnagogic imagery, it was like trippy visuals in the background, all like dancing flowers and stuff. Like try kind of hard to go to sleep with dancing flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said that was 100 micrograms was your first trip?
Yeah.
So did you end up upping the dosage and after that?
After that, no. So for the next 3 or 4 trips, I just did 100 micrograms. I waited a week, so in between each trip, I got like a 10 strip, and then I did all that in 10 weeks. Well, I guess actually, I guess it was 9 weeks. 'Cause there was one time I took 200 micrograms, and that was like almost too much. So I was like, I'm cool with just 100 micrograms,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I just the majority of my first experiences was on 100 micrograms. But then I guess it was probably the third or fourth experience I took 200 micrograms, and then I vaped some DMT as well.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. And I was standing in my room with my eyes completely open, and then my wall just grew a door, and that door opened, and these two like crazy looking angel beings walked out holding this huge orb, and they're like, yeah, so this is like a wisdom orb, and you can go ahead and hold your hands up over it like we're doing, and like get a universal download. And I was just like, okay. so for the so for the next 15 minutes, I was just standing in my room, eyes wide open, with these two guys who looked like they were from, like some other side of the universe, just stand there holding my hands over this big, huge Earth-like glowing orb. Just an average, everyday Sunday night.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So,
What sort of knowledge did you get from that?
well, I can't really say what knowledge I got. It was more like when the time comes, what you learned here will make itself apparent.
Mhm.
Like you can't really bring it out until the situation calls for it. I get like that's what I get the feeling. Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be a general lesson in life anyway, so it makes sense that it would go across dimensions in the galaxy, that
Right. Yeah. So and then probably the most memorable trip that I had from that time was that same night. It was 200 micrograms, and it was after the DMT experience. And I was just laying in my bed with my eyes closed, and I was just feeling all this love and joy and positive emotions. And I just decided, just opened my heart up, and I said, "I love you, I love you, God, I love you." And it was like it felt like four. There was four feathery wing shapes in the fractals that were like interdimensionally shifting and changing, and then they opened up. And then I began to shoot through space, like I was shooting through space in nebula and stars. And then I came to this place where there was this like a double helix road. And it was like lined with all these different interchanging dimensional, like geometric shapes. And then I heard a voice say, like, "That's where you're going." At the end of this road, I saw a room, and it said to me, "That's God's room, and this is where you're going. This is your destiny. One day you're gonna get to that room." And I heard like this voice, and I knew it was God, and it said, "I love you. You are my son. I love you." And ever since that day, it was like this this existential anxiety about what I'm gonna do, where I'm gonna go, is just gone. Like I know everything's gonna be okay because one day I will meet God, and I believe that. So when I go through stuff like, this job's not going right. I don't know what I'm gonna do. What am I gonna do in my life? Like, what degree do I need to do? What am I gonna do in college? All that is just like secondary. It's like, yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it's confusing, but it's like deep down, I know everything's gonna be okay. And it was because of that trip, I think.
Yeah. No, that's that's amazing as well, man. I mean, I think we've been talking a lot on the Discord about gratitude, right? And I think that's like a big part of the emotional soup that is gratitude is like knowing that like it's all going to work out, and that there will be bad things in your life. There will be hard times. There will be things you have to go through, but to know that like the universe loves you and everything will work out and you don't really need to worry about anything, that you'll that old saying, like, God doesn't give you any more than he knows you can handle. Like that's a real thing. You have all the tools to overcome everything. And the more you are grateful and love the positive things in your life, the more you're going to notice those, and the more everything is going to seem positive. Like I believe, and just like with physics and dark matter and matter, I believe that there's just as much negativity and bad stuff in the world as there is good. And by focusing and realizing the good in there, you can make it at least seem like it's all positive. And just knowing that, like, everyone's going the same place, that like you just have to have faith in that, so that, like, to experience that, firsthand like that is, yeah, that's got to be pretty huge.
That's definitely a sense I got, though, is that's the destiny of humanity. This
Yeah.
this path, this double helix spiral rainbow road is pulling and driving, and it's the drive of progression, and it's where everything is going.
Yeah. Well, doesn't Terrence, it's kind of like what Terrence calls the transcendental object at the end of time, Yeah.
Yeah. And I like, that's God, man.
What kept like driving you to continue your DMT use? I feel after once for me, I'd be good. Whereas, I mean, you've done it hundreds of times in a short, very, very short time span that I'd expect another psychonaut to probably complete in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Probably because I just had it, you know? Like, I
Yeah.
just had it on hand. And, if you get bored, you're not bored after a DMT trip, dude.
Yeah. Now, did you notice any like tolerance buildup or anything? Like, did you have to? Yeah, it's just the same every time.
Yeah. No tolerance.
It's incredible. What sort of? I mean, you touched on some of the life lessons that you took from it, and you said the ones that are worth sharing are remembered. What else was there that you didn't touch on that was sent to you that's meant to be shared?
Well, I guess the main message was, you can't focus on negativity. Yeah, there's negativity, and if you have negativity inside you that's radiating out from you, you definitely do focus on that and find the issue and find out where it's coming from. But you don't have to let all this negative, evil, unfortunate stuff enter your mind. If you focus on what's positive and what's true and what's good and what's compassionate and loving, if you let those energies be what you seek out and what you desire for, then that's going to lead to just a more happy existence.
Yeah.
No,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I'm sure there's some more that will come to mind over the course of this conversation. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Check back in whenever you get one.
Yeah.
So your psychedelic usage went from DMT to 1P LSD, and you said you stopped taking both at the end of the same calendar year, or just DMT?
Yeah, just DMT because I run out.
Mm-hmm.
I still take 1P LSD. I'm probably gonna do 300 mics in the next week or two.
Have you done that before?
Oh yeah.
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 How is that? How is the 300?
So I'll get to that. That was like in chronological order. The next experiences I had after major experience, going up into space and all that. That was the main thing before I went to Japan. It was probably about a couple months after that. Man, I'd been planning on going for a long time, and just finally got everything ready to go. And I went in April of 2017, and I took. I'm just gonna say 1B LSD because I'm pretty sure 1P LSD is illegal in Japan and 1B is not. But maybe, it was one or the other. Maybe 1B LSD. But I took 10 tabs of that with me.
Nice.
How did you just have it in like your bag, or what? Did you take some precautions, or what?
I put it in behind the battery of my phone.
Ah, nice.
Oh, Okay. I've heard that it's crazy that we're talking about air like flying with different chemicals and whatnot, because this came up in my life with a stewardess, and she said that really, if you travel with just a tincture of whatever, no one's going to stop you. Like, they don't care about any of that stuff. So that's really the best way to transport it, I think. Like, paper form, I think, could raise more questions than a little dropper bottle with unknown watery liquid, you know?
Right. Well, I hadn't found out about the whole, dissolving it into a little
Mm.
bit of water at that point. If I had, that's exactly what I would have done. But then I wouldn't have this story about getting arrested in Japan.
Go on.
So one night, I was riding my bike back from the train station. It had gotten late, and apparently you're not allowed to ride your bike through Japan without the light on the front working, but it had gone out. So, they stopped me because my light on the bike was out. And they're like, "Oh, where are you going?" "I'm just going home from the train station." Well, where's your passport?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have my passport with me." And they're like, "Oh, we gotta take you down to the precinct, man." Because apparently it's illegal to be out and about in Japan without your passport on you, because you can't prove you're not an illegal alien.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem was I had decided that the best place to stash my strip was inside my passport, So yeah, they needed to see my passport. I mean, I was at the precinct, and they were like, "Oh, we'll send somebody out there to your place, and just tell us where your passport's at. We'll go grab it. Make sure you're not an illegal alien." Started sweating beads, bro.
Yeah, imagine.
I mean, they had taken me into like this back room. I mean, it was probably like a pretty late at night, and I was in a major city. It was Tokorozawa, which is like suburbs of Tokyo. And I was kind of surprised that there was absolutely nobody in there other than me and about 20 other half asleep cops. Half of them reading manga, and there was a bunch of anime posters all up over the walls and everything. But yeah, half asleep people, nobody else, like no criminals in there. I was the only guy getting brought in, and this was like just a regular night, I guess. So I guess that's a testament to the crime rates in Japan. Guess it's pretty low. But yeah, they brought me in there, and they wanted to see my passport, and they were just gonna send somebody out to my place to get it. But I was like, "Oh, there's a Vietnamese girl living in my apartment too, because I had rented this house. It was a two-story house. I got the upstairs. There was a Vietnamese girl living in the downstairs, and I was like, but she would be scared. She'd be scared if there was like a bunch of cops coming into the place. So could you drive me out there, so I could, go get it for you, so there's no police going in the house. And luckily for me, it's probably why I'm not sitting in a Japanese like prison right now, as they let me do that.
Oh, wow.
But that I wouldn't have been in a Japanese prison because it was 1B LSD,
Yeah.
right? So that was a crazy story, man.
So well, first off, were you just visiting Japan or what?
I was there for 2 months, and I had arranged to teach English. Um, Apparently that was actually an illegal arrangement though, and I never got paid.
Oh.
Wow.
Right. And then like it caused issues because like the police were like, "Oh, like, oh, you work anywhere?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally work somewhere. I totally work at this Asa's English teaching place down here, And and that's when I found out it was illegal.
Jeez.
And I didn't get paid. They didn't want me working there anymore. Weren't giving me any kind of breaks. I knew something was up.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Um, so I took LSD while I was in Japan. It was just 100 micrograms each time. I did it 3 times, and the first time, I guess it was just like a really appreciative experience because I mean, I had just when I arrived in Japan, it was probably like a 2.5 hour journey from the airport to where I was going, and I'd never navigated through Japan before. It's not like it's
Mhm.
the easiest thing to do. There's like 100 different trains, and you got to get on one train, then get off and get on another train at the right time in order to go where you're going. And I ended up losing my luggage, all of everything that I owned.
Jeez.
Yeah, I was like pretty freaked out about that until I tracked it down the next day. I traveled probably half across all of Tokyo tracking it down. But yeah, I finally found it. And that was some stress from the first day. But yeah, there was all kinds of people though. Like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And like just these random Japanese people would just walk up to me and be like, "Oh, this is what you need to do. Oh, that's where you need to go." I don't know how to pay for this train. Like Japanese person walks up to me and just a old lady with her little kid, like two little kids behind her, spends 15 minutes explaining to me how to get this Pasmo pass to get on the train. And then I get to the city, or I'm trying to get to my apartment, and I have no idea where to go. This Japanese couple with like two little kids in a stroller, and like a toddler walking beside them, spends like 20 minutes walking with me, showing me where I need to go. I mean, it's not like they weren't busy. It's not like they didn't have something to do, but they spent 20 minutes guiding me to like my address so I could finally find where I was staying. And it was like 11 p.m. Just in a major city, just some random stranger not lost, and they just spend all this time. All these people spend all this time helping me with every little thing that I need. Just random Japanese people, obviously busy doing what they're doing, and they just take take 10, 15 minutes to explain to this obviously confused and scared, 19-year-old foreigner what to do. And in that first LSD trip, it was just I was just crying. I was just crying in my bed with tears of joy, and hoping that maybe one day I could repay this kindness.
Hmm.
I guess that was the main takeaway from my first first LSD trip in Japan.
Yeah. Now you said you weren't in like what was the size of the city you were in? Like, because when I think Japan, I think like Tokyo and this crazy huge city. Were you in like a
Mhm.
smaller city? Or?
No, it was pretty much Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
Like I was in this Tokorozawa, which is like the suburbs of Tokyo.
I got you.
Um, Maybe like I could go like 15 minutes and 20 minutes, and I'd be in the heart of Tokyo.
So even in something as busy and bustling as that, you still encountered, nice, kind, thoughtful people,
Yeah.
which you probably wouldn't in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it just blew me away, like the kindness that I was shown by all these random strangers. And that was just the first day. That was just the first night.
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
mean, that I don't think I could elaborate in 2 hours all the different instances where just random Japanese people just helped me in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
Just it's crazy, man. That was one of the things that I learned about being in Japan. It's everybody there is just like super caring and helpful and communal. They're all about the community and being part of something and being part of the society and like trying to help everyone just better their lives.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's like millions of people living like side by side. They've got to figure out a way to get along, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, I definitely I appreciate well, the Japanese and Korean cultures. Like I really I want to go visit that area of the world for sure. I you know I hope I get to at some point, but the culture does just really interest me, and it's good to hear uh people that have those experiences and not just witnessing it on TV and stuff like that. Like people have actually been there and felt the difference in the energy of the culture.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's really not too much to say about my trips in Japan other than, they were super trippy. Like I would go outside and look up at the sky and it'd be like super blue, and then I
Mhm.
like maybe like I would see in the clouds like this advanced clockwork like geometry, like the sun and the clouds were all like on this like clockwork uh system. It was all like interconnected and beautifully intricately like designed, and I've had that experience a couple of times on LSD here in the States and in Japan,
Mhm.
where I just look up at the sky and it's like everything is like connected in some way, like with these like it's kind of like it was like pale white lines. It looked like pale white outlines of like something that was like deeper behind like what I could see, but it was like I was kind of like seeing the shadow of it from
Mhm.
like another higher dimension, and it was like everything was on this clockwork, like it was all connected, and when something moved somewhere, something else moved in conjunction with it, and it was like I guess all I could say, it was very connected.
Yeah.
And then I had an experience. It was the second time I had taken LSD, where I was just sitting in my room, and all of a sudden, it was just 100 micrograms, just average LSD tab, or 1P or 1B. And then all of a sudden, like I look up and at the crack of the ceiling, like it just raised up and like this glowing light like started radiating in, and I felt like I saw this like it was like an ancient but adolescent being that was just grinning and looking down at me. And it was like it felt very Asian because I was in Japan, but it was like an Asian adolescent but also ancient higher dimensional being that just like opened up the ceiling, and apparently wherever he was like glowing with golden light. And he just looked in, and I was just like, "Oh, hey, buddy." And he noticed I looked at him. He was like, he closed it because he was shy, I guess. And I was just like, what?" And like, I mean, that happened. That just happened.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, uh, they were talking. Someone asked a question on the Discord discussion channel about MET, and you said that you had experience with that, and I it's a research chemical, but I don't know much about it. Can you talk about those experiences?
Yeah. So I only did it twice. And that was fairly recent. N-dimethyltryptamine and N-methylenethyltryptamine are similar, but they're different in the fact that one is like dimethylated and one is only just like singular methylated, I guess.
Hmm.
So that's like the difference that makes it legal. Um, but like it was very different in experience. Um, so the first time I took it with a friend of mine. We were in his apartment, and like I mean, like we put it on some bud, and we smoked it, and it was probably I guess about 60 milligrams. might have been more. I I can't remember if we measured it, but then we put more on top because we were like, yeah, I gotta be safe.
Yeah.
uh, but the thing was, as soon as we took it, like 2 3 minutes in, like sirens, like police sirens, were just going woo 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 for like what felt like 15 20 minutes, and then my friend, it didn't, it made me paranoid, made my friend paranoid. It was his. It was his place. It didn't help me. The fact that he got up and went into his living room and started spraying Febreze.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, we just smoked the buds, man. They're coming for us. They're about to bust down the door. We're getting raided, you know? So, but I didn't really break through, but I definitely heard a voice saying, "It's going to be okay. They're not coming for you. It's going to be okay. They're not coming for you." You know? Uh, but so the main thing I experienced from the MET was a more emotional kind of like enhancement. Like it enhanced my emotional state, and the visuals weren't that much. Like it definitely didn't seem like DMT at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like I just smoked shrooms, but it was like kind of like, yeah, man, that's pretty much what it was like. It was like smoking shrooms. That's what I'd say it was. It's
Gotcha.
kind of like smoking shrooms, and it lasts for me, it lasted like 45 minutes, whereas like DMT will wear off in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Second time I did it, luckily there was no sirens. I was just listening to, again, some of my favorite One Piece tracks. And it was just a good time. It was super hard to get in. When it come like I mixed it into some e-liquid, and I couldn't do it. Like I could not vape it in the e-liquid. With DMT, I mixed it into the e-liquid, and I thought it tasted good. It was smooth. It was easy to get in. It was like no problem. But with this MET, it was just like acid. Like I was trying to breathe in acid, and the vaping didn't make it any easier. So I thought, it'd just be. Now, man, I couldn't get enough in that with that method because it was just too harsh vaping it.
Yeah.
I guess putting on bud, I you know, I just it was a bong, I could get it through faster. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it hurts, but I can get it all in. Uh, didn't enjoy the taste at all. So
Yeah.
that's one thing to mention about it. But it did have like a visual kind of thing similar to DMT, but it was more like the beginning, like just like a very threshold. I mean, even all the way up to 60 70 milligrams, it was just like a threshold type of DMT experience that lasts for like 40 minutes and kind of makes you feel like you're on shrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done any research chemicals, and that's an interesting thing I like to ask people about is their comparison of it to the naturally occurring substances, even though NMDMT is extracted. I mean, it's the naturally occurring molecule, and it's just interesting to hear the difference between them and the similarities, because as much as we feel like these are these otherworldly spiritual experiences or cosmic experiences, it still comes down to the neurochemistry of it's a molecule that's fitting in a space in your brain and then activating all this other stuff, and like how much of that is just your brain, and like but again, that to have that thinking introduces that doubt, which closes off the veil, honestly.
I
So.
mean, everything you experience through your perceptions, and is everything you experience from the brain? I mean, when you feel something that you feel in your foot, do you feel that in your brain or do you feel that in your foot?
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah. No, at some point it's like, you got to be like, well, stop worrying about if the experience is real. If you're experiencing it, is real, you know?
Uh, so after I got back from Japan, I probably took a break, first break from psychedelics, just because I didn't have any, for about 2 months. 2 months. Up until that point, I'd been taking it pretty much weekly. From
Yeah.
the first DMT to then, it was pretty much weekly, and I don't necessarily recommend that.
No, nobody does.
But I mean, I was excited. It was a new thing. I was like, "Oh, the tolerance is back down. I can trip again." But
Yeah.
after I got back from Japan, I waited 2 months, and I was like, maybe I needed a break. I took a break for about 2 months, and then I just ordered some more from like, I think it was the Endo shop. But the thing was, I put in my order, never made me pay for it, but they sent me what I ordered.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was like, and that happened twice. That happened twice with the Indo shop. They sent me 20 whole tabs that I never paid for.
Huh.
So thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's an endorsement for them for sure.
Right? And they also sent me 250, and I didn't even try to order that, but they just sent me 200 milligrams of DMT. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna say no to that. And that was after I got back from Japan. All I had experienced up to that point was DMT and 1P or 1BLS, maybe 1BLSD. It was 1PLSD. So yeah, that's all I had experienced up to that point. And then I got this 4-ACO DMT. The So I decided to take 3 tabs and 40 milligrams of 4-ACO DMT, I think it was. And yeah, I just went outside that time. Just went outside in my yard. I got probably 3 acres of yard. I live with my parents, but it's 3 acres, tons. Like, there's probably 1,000 different species of plants and bushes and shrubs and flowers and trees, fig trees, apple trees, uh, uh, peach trees, all kinds of different stuff. Just super, super covered in all kinds of forestation and shrubbery and flowers, and of course that attracts all kinds of butterflies and different insects and all kinds of interesting looking things, that stuff you want to look at while you're tripping. Um, and up to this point, I hadn't really tripped outside during the day because I was a little bit too paranoid. But this time, I was, perfectly cool with it. I just wanted to go outside and experience this because I knew, that it was going to be a good time. So I guess it was probably about 4 grams worth of shrooms and 300 micrograms of 1PLSD that I was on. I was just All I did was just sit outside, and that was probably one of the most powerful experiences I had of all my psychedelic experiences. And I just got it. It was like I was thinking about the trees and the nature, and I realized just being outside, just looking at these beautiful trees and these flowers, like it fills you with this energy, with this peace and calmness.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you can sit inside and stare at a wall for 6 hours, and you're not, it's not going to be good for you. But you can go outside and just stare at the nature of it all, and it's kind of what I like. Certainly leads me to believe that there's a creator, because we didn't have to have all this beauty. We didn't have to have all this color and these beautiful smells and these interesting different looking insects. I mean, I'm pretty sure existence could have got by with, a little brown colored spheral growing out of the ground that farts out pollen. I'm pretty sure that stuff could, procreate and, survive that way. But no, it's beautiful. It smells good. It looks good. And when you're out in it, it does something to you. It changes you in a way that's positive. It's like you grow from being out in nature. And that was just a really powerful experience to me.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge proponent for outside tripping. For all the talk about, silent darkness and set and setting and all of that, it's like, what better setting could you have than a nice, beautiful, safe outdoor, nice weather day, like you can't recreate anything as awesome as that inside, and I really, my last couple trips up in my place in New York, where I have access to land like that and everything. That's what I've walked away from that is like whatever kind of internal quest you can have in 5 grams in silent darkness and with your eyes closed and stuff like that. However powerful that can be, it can be just as powerful walking around outside and appreciating nature and the gift that out of all the billions and trillions of planets there are that don't even have an atmosphere, like your soul ended up on this planet that is beautiful and plentiful, and like it's this overwhelming like love and gratitude that you feel the whole time. The only negative feelings I had was like attributed to like there was like some bad weather rolling in and like my mood changed with the weather, but as that went away, then I was happy again, like and whatever. But I have tripped outside when it's dark, and that's a different experience that isn't as happy, but like that can get kind of scary. But yeah, during the day on a nice day, like, oh man, if people that listen to trip reports and stuff like that and trip themselves but can't get outside, like that's something you have to try. Like it's a whole new game.
Oh, for certain. Like, I mean, I've had, like, most of my trips were inside up till this point. But, like, when I took the shrooms, the 4-ACO DMT, it's a psilocybin converts into psilocin just the same way as psilocybin.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing. And it was more or less 4 grams, and that was my first time. And I mean, I've been used to 1P LSD. I thought, might as well go for it, add 300 micrograms to it.
Yeah.
And man, it was just like nature is where it's at.
Yeah.
That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
When on like super powerful psychedelic trips. That's where you want to be, out in beautiful nature, because there's just nothing like the gratitude and the joy you feel from just being in all the beauty.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've worked almost my entire adult career in jobs that work outside, and working with like ecological restoration and stuff like that, and everyone calls it the earth religion. Like once you start that, like you can't go back inside under fluorescent lights, and they're like they got that earth religion now, and like everyone says that. It's kind of like a at least in my group of coworkers, it's been a industry term of some sorts, and it's like over that decade or so of working, I've soaked in all that energy that is in nature anyway, but tripping out in it is like condensing that that decade of exposure into 4 to 6 hours of all of the same amount of appreciation and energy and love and everything like that. So I'm huge proponent of of tripping outside for sure. So I'm glad you had that experience.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I can, that's like, I mean, at least half the trip will be outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to watch anime, like the new episodes of One Piece or whatever I'm watching. I'll come inside and watch that. But yeah, I like to be outside during the day, and just see all the colors and the beautiful, wonder of just existing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
The best way.
Yeah.
I mean, silent darkness, you get to you get to go deep inside yourself, but maybe that's not the most therapeutic thing. Maybe it would be more therapeutic to see where you're at, really.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, the new Western shamanism that is being, constructed within, trying to change government policy but be part of the psychiatry, of Western society, at least, that, MAPS is setting up and whatever, where they, it's, with eye shades on and headphones, laying down inside, solitary thing, but you have 2 therapists there, 2 guides that are trained, and there's this level of safety that has to, kind of be in your subconscious the whole time, that makes it a little easier to do. My experience with trying silent darkness by myself is like that. It's very hard to control that and to ride that ride, and it can be beneficial if you master it, but it can be horribly detrimental if you can't handle it, and unfortunately there seems to be, so much bravado that comes with the people that can master it, that they it's like it compounds to where, like, you kind of like feel down on yourself if you have a bad trip because you tried to do 5 grams in silent darkness by yourself. I get lots of emails from people, they're like, I don't know how you can handle that. I like had a terrible time. I'm still recovering from it. And my response usually is like, I can't handle it either. Like I think that's pretty much been my, description of all of my attempts to do this shit, is that I can't do it,
I mean, I forgot to mention that. I mean, on the come up of the trip, I was inside. I didn't actually just decide I was going to trip outside that time. What happened was I was inside, and I was planning on staying inside, but it was like, the shrooms, like, it was completely different, and I felt like this overwhelming desire to go outside. And it was like I was like in a negative space. It was like my ceiling opened up, and everyone from the end of time from all time was like looking back at me and judging everything I was thinking and doing. Was like, okay, maybe change the scenery.
Yeah.
And then I go outside, and it's a completely different story. I'm thinking of it's beautiful things, that it was just like a very positive and amazing experience that taught me that nature is where it's at.
Yeah. No, I get that a lot too, of like, trying to hang out inside, listening to music or something like that. And then, like, I just get called outside and then end up spending the rest of the night or day laying in my grass in my yard, but like, I also have this with tripping where if I'm inside, I get, and they're thought loops, but I get stuck in these loops of like trying to mess with something, like if it's the radio or packing a bowl or whatever, and you get caught like, wait, what was I doing? Oh, I was doing this. Oh, wait, what was I doing? And then before you know it, you have like, a TV remote in one hand and a lighter in the other. And you're like looking at them like, what am I doing? What are these for? And when I'm just like outside walking around, like I don't have any of that. Like you're just like exploring and appreciating, and like you're not like, where am I? Where am I? Now I have had some moments where I'm like in the woods where like I get a little scared, like common sense creeps into my head. It's like, you're gonna get lost, you jackass, and then like I'll have a little moment of like, wait, where am I going? Which did I come down this path? I'll have a little bit of confusion, but for the most part, it's usually like I don't have any of those thought loops. Like there's enough outside to keep you entertained and keep you out of that kind of process that can happen in a psychedelic state.
Absolutely. The second shroom trip that I had, which was probably the next trip after that one, I didn't take any 1-PLSD, and I noticed that the open eye visuals were different, right? So my first time with the shrooms was with LSD. Plenty of open-eyed visuals, all the squirrels and stuff. Like the insects would be flying by, and I'd see like trails for like 15 feet behind them. You know. And then the second time I took it was just the mushrooms, and I noticed mostly from the difference was not as much open-eyed visuals, more closed-eye visuals, and it was more emotionally charged and more like the body load for me was more enjoyable, I guess. It was more comfortable.
Mhm.
It was very soft and cuddly is how I would describe it. And I didn't get any kind of nausea from taking this, it was like completely smooth, and it came on in like 30 minutes. And it was nighttime at this point, and I was inside, and I decided, I feel like I want to go outside. But there was no moon. It was just completely stars. And I could see the Milky Way. I was just laid outside, and I was looking up at the Milky Way, and the whole trip, I was just laying out in my grass. Well, no, I took a sheet with me, so I was just laying out on a sheet, staring up at the stars the whole time. And I don't know if it was the trip. I mean, normally you don't say, like I said, there was no open-eyed visuals, but there was this super huge shooting star that shot across the entire sky while I was out there. It was really big, and it broke off into 3 different sections as I was watching it, and it was almost like rainbow colored, like the tail was almost rainbow colored, and it looked like it was like just directly over where my yard. Like it was like super high up, and it took up the whole sky. But yeah, that was really amazing experience. I was thankful that I was outside, laying, staring up at the sky at night when that happened, because it was like one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen go across the sky. And the whole night, I felt like I was going up into the stars, shooting across the Milky Way galaxy. And it was almost like each star was like has its own song. Like each star was singing a song of like joy and praise of being existing. And it was like coming into my mind all these different songs and stories and scenarios, like there was like all kinds of stuff just happening out there in the universe. And it was like these beautiful stories and songs and scenarios that I was just picking up on. Definitely a beautiful experience, I would say.
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, that's looking up at the stars is like even with just weed is a
Sober.
like well, yeah, sober, yeah, but like we often forget that life directs our head downwards, and we often forget that for most of human existence we've been looking up, and trying to figure out what the hell the lights are up there, and it's yeah, to take any moment and just like soak in the moment of looking up at the stars is something. But so we're going on an hour and a half. I know you've got plenty more stories, I'm sure, and I appreciate how much of a fearless adventurer you're being with these substances, and I appreciate you coming on and telling your stories and stuff. And definitely we should have you back on to tell some more. I appreciate your ability to recall everything too, and it's pretty good, because there's so many trips I've had where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck just happened. I can't even explain it, so
Yeah.
and I know you said there's a lot you haven't been able to bring back, but what you have brought back is amazing, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah. Real quick, I would just like to say my last trip, which was about 3 months ago, is what got me into my new daily ritual of like 2 hours of exercise, eating right. Like I started eating rice and chicken and broccoli and just like eating all that kind of stuff, and I ended up losing like 20 pounds in the past 3 months. And I mean that was from the inspiration of a 5 gram worth 4-ACO DMT, 300 microgram LSD trip.
Combined?
Yeah, it was 5 gram shroom, 300 microgram LSD. It was 4 months ago now, and since then I've been exercising about 2 to 3 hours a day, eating right, drinking protein shakes, not eating anything with high fat content or high sugar, and I can't say that would be the case if it weren't for that last trip.
That's amazing.
I mean, Ruben, do you have time to go into that at all?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, dude, if you could go into that trip, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So 3 weeks prior to that, I had a 4-ACO MET trip, and there wasn't much to say from that other than I looked down on my stomach and I was like, yeah, something needs to change. I started watching the Joe Rogan podcast, watched like interviews with like martial artists, and I got into doing, like, that was part of my exercise routine, was kung fu and tai chi and yoga, and obviously with the push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, squats, and all that. And then I started that after so like was watching all these interviews and stuff and getting all this information absorbed, and then I had that super huge trip where I just laid down. I mean, I couldn't. It was like so powerful. I couldn't go outside that time. I could barely move. And I just laid down in my bed, and the whole time I was like seeing like these muscles and like different muscular shapes and all these different things, and like I felt like my consciousness was going deeper into my skin and my muscles, and like parts and areas that had atrophied from misuse or disuse. Like I was like, my mind was like filling it up. It was like you got a water hose, right? And then like these psychedelics was like like if there's kinks in the water hose and then you turn it on like full blast, and it's just like all the power of so much rushing through it. It was like that's what the psychedelics were doing through my neurons. It was like supercharging them, like blowing out the kinks and the knots, and like I felt my consciousness going into like these different areas of my body, and like I was moving and kind of like wiggling in certain ways that like probably I hadn't done before, and I just like felt my awareness going into those places, and like I started doing that exercise. Just watch like the Shaolin monks YouTube videos, and like different like techniques of how to train, kung fu and tai chi and yoga. I was like just doing all those different things, spending 2-3 hours a day on it. After that, I got the motivation to actually spend all that time from that trip, because the main thing I took from that was all you have to do is put in the time. All you have to do is put in the effort, and it will happen. It will happen. You will grow, and you will become more. All you have to do is put in the time and the effort and eat right. That's all you got to do. It's not. It's hard, but once you get that momentum going, you'll just keep going. And sure enough, I've kept it up.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
I had a similar experience when after my like Silent Darkness 5 gram trip, where I spent 2 months straight basically waking up every morning at 5 a.m. and going to the gym for 2 hours and eating healthy throughout it all. And yeah, I had the same results that you're getting. Unfortunately, it didn't keep up. I moved in the middle of that, and there was like a ton of excuses my mind can come up with why I didn't continue. But I'm hopeful that next time that I have a psychedelic experience, that inspiration will peak again.
Well, I kind of got pneumonia a couple weeks ago, and I guess I took like maybe 3 weeks off, like more or less.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm getting back into it now that I'm pretty much recovered.
And it's a noticeable feeling too. That feeling is addicting too.
Yeah, it is.
It's great. Well, I just wanted to ask one more question before we wrap things up, and I just wanted to ask, like, what is sober reality for you? Like, what is it like, and how is it compared to the sober reality you remember before you started taking anything?
Well, I'm meditating more. When I encounter people, I can see in their eyes something that I couldn't see before. And it's like I can like see like what's going on like in behind their words. It's like I can look at someone's face or I could look at their body and well, I mean, like like their shape, and kind of understand what they've been doing and what they've been thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they've been focusing on positive or negative, or some stuff like that. Like I feel like I'm more empathetic and I understand what's actually going on a lot more.
Gotcha, man.
Those sound like some pretty negative side effects of these drugs, man.
Sounds like they should definitely be illegal.
Yep. Gotta lock them up.
All right, man. Well, it's getting late here. I got it. I'm falling asleep. But thanks.
We'll definitely have you on again for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And I think it was a great talk, man.
All right, I'm glad it was.
All right. Well, have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
As always, thank you for listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. Please don't forget to check out our Discord server to connect with our growing community. The link to join can be found in the description. And if you feel like donating to our channel to help us grow, a link to our Patreon can also be found in the description, as well as some cryptocurrency wallet addresses. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast or have any questions about these topics, please email helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. If you would like to leave a voicemail or a text message question for a future episode, Stan, what's that number again?
567-233-1335.
Okay, guys, thanks again. And until next time, let's help find the others.